Copyright disclaimer under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, guys, this picture is Stacy Dawn Murphy of Owasso, Oklahoma, I believe. And she passed away in a Narconon facility. So I'm going to read the article, and I will definitely leave the link in the description box. My voice is starting to get better. I've got acid reflux. I know it's way too much information, but that's why I have issues right now. So it's nothing nothing crazy. And the article is from Oklahoman. And it was published January 22nd, 2017. 4 deaths in 3 years. Advocates wonder why drug rehab centers still open. Yeah, inquiring minds really want to know. We all want to know why Narconon is still running, which is directly related to Scientology. It's actually, they're just related. I don't know. I wouldn't call, maybe I don't know, it could be a front group. I don't know how you would describe it. Stacy Dawn Murphy of Owasso died at Narconon Arrowhead in July 2012. A state law requiring more oversight of drug treatment programs was enacted in 2013, known as Stacy's Law. The Oklahoman. Canadian. After the death of 20-year-old Stacy Dawn Murphy at a Church of Scientology backed drug rehab program in Pittsburgh County. Okay, Pittsburgh. She's from Pittsburgh. The state enacted a new law to provide more oversight of drug and alcohol rehabilitation centers. And we all know what's going on with those. If you go watch BJ Investigates, she does some really, really, really good, intense shows and investigation about them. However, Narconon Arrowhead, where Murphy and 3 other clients died, and there's way, way more, continues to operate legally because the law allows only limited supervision from the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. I am very surprised they are still open. I sure am, said Gary Richardson, a Tulsa attorney who represents former Narconon Arrowhead clients and their parents, including Murphy's parents, in nearly a dozen lawsuits against Narconon. Murphy, a former waitress from Owasso, sought treatment for heroin addiction at Narconon Arrowhead. She died of an accidental drug overdose at the program in July 2012. Her parents are suing for negligence and wrongful death. The case is set for trial later this year in Pittsburgh County District Court at McAllister. Hold on, guys. Murphy's parents, Tanya White and Robert Murphy, claim their daughter was left alone in Narconon Arrowhead's withdrawal unit with no medical supervision. I want to repeat that. She was left alone in Narconon Arrowhead's withdrawal unit with no medical supervision for at least 2 hours between shift changes and was later found dead. My question is, too, how do we know it was a drug overdose? Because, in my opinion, that would be a real easy out, wouldn't it? It reminds me of my nephew, who died in jail. After Murphy's death, Governor Mary Fallin signed Senate Bill 295 into law in 2013, known as Stacy's Law. The bill requires inpatient drug treatment programs to be certified by the state. Overlooking Lake Eufaula near Arrowhead State Park. The 200-bed facility is the flagship rehabilitation center for the international Scientology-backed Narconon. Narconon should have been put out of business a long time ago. How many people have died since, the inception of this complete farce? Under Stacy's law, Narconon Arrowhead lost its state certification for a medical detox facility in McAllister in 2013. It subsequently closed. Narconon's non-medical detox program has been licensed by the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services since at least the 1990s. However, a loophole in Stacy's law there we go, they always love their loopholes, don't they? However, a loophole in Stacy's law lets Narconon Arrowhead continue to operate its drug rehabilitation program, certified not as an inpatient treatment program, but a halfway house. See how they changed their little costume? It's what they do. Narconon Arrowhead's drug rehabilitation program, which relies on the teachings of Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard, as well as large doses of vitamins and steam baths, remains open. How many people have died with that vitamin treatment? Gary Smith, executive director of Narconon Arrowhead, said the program continues to offer the same services, but is now certified as a halfway house by the state. Isn't there a way that... I have to look into that, but we see they're just trying to change their little costume and change the wording so they can just suck everybody's money. But it seems to me like there would have to be some kind of medical oversight here. The Narconon Arrowhead program is also accredited by CRF International, an independent nonprofit that accredits health and human services programs, Smith said. It's a different certification, Smith said. It's a level of care. We are a drug rehab, like we always have been. Halfway house is a level of care that Oklahoma has for drug rehab programs. Murphy and 3 other clients died in Narconon Arrowhead's care in 3 years. That's a lot of people in 3 years. At one center? In 2009, Casey Diane Wernick, 28, that's so sad, died of a respiratory infection after being transported to a hospital. Yeah, they let her go too long. It's so sad. Wernick's family sued for wrongful death in 2010 and settled out of court in 2011, according to court records. Well, we're not going to let her memory go unwavered. Casey Diane Wernick, 28 years old. In October 2011, Gabriel Graves, 32, was found dead in his room at Narconon. Graves had previously complained to staff of severe headaches after undergoing Narconon's prescribed sauna treatments. But was denied medical treatment. That sounds like severe dehydration. According to a wrongful death lawsuit filed by his mother, Shirley Gilliam settled her claims against Narconon in 2015, court records show. You see what Scientology tries to do? And I understand why. I'm not completely against people that settle out of court. A lot of people always talk bad about them, but they don't know what people have been through. In April 2012, Hillary Holton, 21, died at Narconon Arrowhead. That's so very sad. 2 days after being admitted to the program, in a wrongful death lawsuit filed in August 2012, Holton's parents claimed Narconon Arrowhead fraudulently represented that a physician was on staff. Ooh, that's what I was saying. Fraudulently represented that a physician was on staff 24 hours a day, fraud, to tend to her daughter, who suffered from a serious adrenal gland disorder and needed daily medication. You know what they did? They didn't let the poor young lady get her medication. These people need to be brought down. And if you're involved in that stuff, There's only so much rope I give people. The clients who died were in a Narconon program that was not certified, nor required to be at the time, said Jeff Dismuke, spokesman for the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. Here we go. Nonetheless, we immediately notified both law enforcement. Well, that doesn't help these 3 people, does it? Cover-up always takes more energy, doesn't it? And also the medical examiner's office upon learning of each death and asked them to determine if anything improper had occurred, Dismuke said. But think about that. Why would they admit there was any wrongdoing when they know that a lot of what occurred, they have responsibility as well? They're not going to out themselves. Despite a multi-county grand jury inquiry in 2014, Narconon Arrowhead has never faced any state civil action or criminal charges in connection with the deaths. Do tell. The Oklahoman asked Smith if Narconon had changed any of its policies since the deaths of 4 clients. Of course, Smith said, before declining to comment further. And you guys know it's probably people who are staffing that are these Scientologists getting, supposed, in quotations, volunteers that get $47 a month, and they're not medical. Halfway houses. After the deaths, now retired, Senator Tom Investor, Democrat, Sayre introduced Stacy's Law in 2013. Before the legislation, there was almost no state oversight because most of Narconon's drug treatment program didn't meet the criteria to be regulated by the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, Investor said. Hold on, guys. While failing to meet the requirements to operate an inpatient treatment program, Narconon exercised a loophole in Stacy's Law that does allow it to operate as a certified halfway house, which receives less state scrutiny. You see what those big-time slimy lawyers at Scientology pays? You see what they do? Anything for money, huh? So they're the people that are responsible for these kinds of things, they're parasites. In order for them to get their monetary gain, to get their influence or their fame and their power, they have to feed off of the lesser fortunate. And that's what they do. They feed off the poor Scientologists that are working 18-hour days for basically almost nothing. And then they're feeding off these poor young people that need help for their addictions, which they're vulnerable. They just feed off of them. And they continually get away with this stuff. That was not meant for Narconon. It was meant for halfway houses that were a part of a regular AA treatment program, Investor said, of the exemption. In most drug rehabilitation programs, halfway houses or sober living homes are meant as a transitional step for recovering addicts with more freedom between inpatient treatment and the outside world, or another loophole for sleazy snakes to get away with crimes. Narconon is not advertising as a halfway house, and they don't bill you as a halfway house, Investor said. You can call yourself whatever you want, but you are holding yourself out to be a drug rehab center. Yeah, isn't that like, shouldn't they all be arrested or at least shut down? They restructured that program and then applied to have the restructured program certified as a halfway house. Dismuke said after it was determined that the restructured program, Sorry, guys, I almost dropped my tablet. I'm going to just reread that. Sorry, guys. They restructured that program and then applied to have the restructured program certified as a halfway house. Dismuke said after it was determined that the restructured program met all necessary requirements to operate as a halfway house, that program was granted halfway house certification. At that point, Narconon came into compliance with Stacy's law, Dismuke said. Ivester believes the state could choose to regulate Narconon Arrowhead as an inpatient treatment center under Stacy's law, but chooses not to do so. More liability. I still believe that the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services has the authority over Narconon, but I believe they don't exercise that authority, Ivester said. Well, should we be surprised? It's repugnant. Although state law now treats it as a halfway house, the Narconon Arrowhead Center also continues to advertise its services on its website for drug rehabilitation and detoxification services. Under the law, Narconon Arrowhead can say it offers drug rehabilitation as long as it doesn't hold itself out as residential treatment program, Dismuke said. It is important to note the difference between rehabilitation services and a residential treatment program. Dismuke said rehabilitation services are a lesser level of care. If Narconon were to state that they provided residential treatment, they would need to become certified as a residential substance abuse treatment facility. You guys know they would never pass. Since 2012, the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services has sent 2 cease and desist letters to Narconon Arrowhead, ordering the center to remove misleading statements from its website about its state certifications, Dismuke said. Let's see, we're in 2024, and I'm not sure if anything has happened. In an October 2015 news release, Narconon Arrowhead stated it had been certified by the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services under the state's rigorous standards to ensure the program's safety and trustworthiness, according to a copy of the most recent cease and desist letter provided by the department. The news release makes several inappropriate, misleading, and or deceptive representations by Narconon in regard to certifications issued by the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. The state agency wrote in its most recent letter to Narconon Arrowhead. Then they show a picture. It's right on a Lake Eufaula. There's that isolation. Narconon settles lawsuits. Over the past year and a half, Narconon Arrowhead has quietly settled at least 9 lawsuits. That's a lot. Alleging the rehabilitation center had poorly trained staff and inadequate care that sometimes resulted in the death of clients. I'll bet they're Scientologists. A lot of them, anyways. According to court records, the terms of the settlements are confidential. See, there's that non-disclosure. Just like Rinder wanted, he wanted that, that lady to sign. I can't think of her name right now. The terms of the settlements are confidential, and some of the plaintiffs signed non-disparagement agreements that do not allow them to publicly say anything negative about Narconon, which should never happen at a drug and alcohol rehabilitation place, even though they're calling themselves a halfway house. Unreal. Smith declined to answer questions about the legal settlements because some litigation is still ongoing, he said. Richardson's clients claimed in several now settled lawsuits that poorly trained Narconon Arrowhead staff members. We need to really elaborate on that because it's way too blurry. Bartered drugs with patients in exchange for sex in some instances. If that doesn't scream Scientology, I don't know what does. Many staff members were former or current drug addicts, often going to bed as a student and waking up as a staff member. Oh, wow. According to one petition. See, this is what the LAPD aligns themselves with, these kind of folks. The lawsuits claim the Narconon Arrowhead treatment regimen is based on the ideas of Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard, and the Narconon program is really a thinly veiled recruiting tool for the Church of Scientology. Yes, get them while they're vulnerable. They like to use schools. They like to go for the children. They like to go for people under, duress, who have drug and alcohol issues. The settlements contain confidentiality clauses that bar his clients from discussing the terms of the agreements. I would say they were very pleased with the settlement amount. That's the only reason they didn't go to trial, Richardson said. Richardson said he believes Narconon has chosen to settle many of the claims because of the evidence he was prepared to present at trial. I bet they were. But what I don't like is I'd love to see more names coming out, because it's just enough already. It's enough. Like this beautiful young lady, she's gone now. If you saw the evidence, that question would be answered, Richardson said. Lisa Gray, who sent her son to Narconon in 2011 to treat his alcohol problems, sued Narconon in 2013 for fraud in Pittsburgh County District Court. In her lawsuit, Gray claimed Narconon touted an unheard of 70% success rate, but the treatment program for her son consisted mostly of sitting in a sauna, taking large doses of niacin, and filling out worksheets. I also don't think they do. I'm not a medical person. I'm a social worker by trade, but I'm not a nurse or a doctor. But what I do know is that they're supposed to, when people are coming off drugs or alcohol, there's supposed to be a medically supervised withdrawal. That has a lot to do with what's going on here. The program employed no licensed therapists or counselors, and staff were mostly other recovering addicts, Gray's lawsuit claimed. Also, too, no offense to anyone, but it sounds like they weren't getting paid, so that's more free labor, more slave labor. I mean, they might have been getting paid, but you all know Scientology is not going to pay a lot. If they were, which I don't know. This program has all the appearance of being nothing more than a scheme and a sham, just like Scientology, generated solely for the purpose of generating financial gain for the defendants and a front to recruit Scientologists, Gray's lawsuit claimed. There should be more lawsuits about medical negligence or medical malpractice. I know in Germany and what's the other? France. Germany and France weren't playing with all this stuff. And there's probably more out there, but I just know those two countries were not the ones. Gray dismissed the lawsuit in June after settling out of court. Mary Cantu, the mother of a former Narconon client, also sued Narconon for fraud in 2013, claiming her son, Frank Cantu, left the program in the middle of the night in August 2011 after he witnessed one of his roommates at Narconon have a seizure. Oh, so that's because they're not letting them take their medications. Not feeling safe, plaintiff's son left the facility and slept in a park until the plaintiff could rescue him hours later, Cantu claimed in her lawsuit. That's horrible. Cantu also dropped her lawsuit against Narconon in June after settling out of court. So they're settling a lot of stuff out of court. People are coming for you, Narconon and Scientology. You got to hold up to a higher ethical standard. You guys are always talking about ethics. Cantu also dropped her... Okay, never mind. Lawton resident Colin Henderson, a former Narconon Arrowhead client, who now dedicates large chunks of his free time to denouncing the program, is not restrained from commenting by any settlement agreements. You hear that, Scientology? There's a lot of people that they're not restrained, so they're talking. Sucks to be you guys. Henderson said he believes the state could do more to regulate Narconon Arrowhead. Hello? It's disgusting. He now runs a Facebook page called Narconon Exposed that includes the stories of many former Narconon clients. I don't do Facebook. but you guys might want to go check that out. Like many of the former clients and parents who have sued, Henderson said Narconon gave him false promises and half-truths, just like Scientology, to lure him to the program. Henderson claimed Narconon Arrowhead would not allow him to have access to his blood pressure medication. There we go. Ooh, that's kind of scary. Henderson left after a few weeks after discovering much of Narconon's treatment program was based on Scientology. Stacy's Law should have shut them down, Henderson said. They should not be open right now. Exactly. So you guys, I hope you enjoyed this article. It's from the Oklahoman, and I will put the link in the description box. Hold on. And rest in peace. Rest in peace to Stacy Dawn Murphy of Owasso. Peace, everyone.